Since 2003, this is the Sports Source, East Tennessee's #1 sports talk show.
Brought to you by Junk Be Gone and the Garza Law Firm.
With your host, John Pennington. The Sports Source starts now.
Welcome into the Sports Source. Thanks for joining us. We are happy to have you here. Tennessee fought hard for a half, then got smoked. Well, just smoked in the second half. 38-14, your final against Florida last night. Were there positives that should be considered when you take into account the roster that was inherited by Josh Heupel, the lack of depth? Or was it just another bad effort? And it doesn't matter because you lost the game. We'll discuss a lot of that glass half full, glass half empty stuff today. Because, traditionally we're really a bunch of glass half full guys. But we'll discuss that today. We've got a lot to discuss in terms of not only last night's game, the coaching staff and what we've learned about them in the first quarter of the season, and then we'll look ahead to Missouri quite a bit since that's a huge game. Let's get right into it. First segment of our program is brought to you by the Garza Law Firm. DUI defense, criminal defense, personal injury cases, and Social Security disability cases, and much more. Knoxville's Marcos Garza and the attorneys at the Garza Law Firm are the team to call if you find yourself in need of legal representation. They're right here in Knoxville. They've been here in Knoxville. That gives you a leg up. They know the local system. So many regional law offices are now putting their ads in town. Go with the local guys. Go with the guys you can trust and you have for years. Marcos Garza and the Garza Law Firm. You see the website. All right, let's welcome in the guys that I trust year after year. Will Overstreet, former Vol player, thanks for being here.
Great to be here.
The duo from WNML, that's 99.1, the sports animal. One of your guys over at 990 told me to stop saying 99.1 and 99. Stop saying WNML and start saying the sports animal. So I'm playing nice. 99.1, the sports animal. My only issue is I'll never remember it and I'll stumble all over it.
Me either.
99.1, the sports animal. And down there, Bob Hodge, who's just here from his house. Long-time sports writer, been here on the show for many years. Bob, thanks for joining us. All right. I said a few weeks ago that Tennessee's roster just isn't that talented. You were 3-7 last year. That's not a crazy statement. It's kind of obvious. I said depth was going to be a concern after you lost dozens of players because, it is simple. And yet, last night, you still had people watch and get upset, which it's amazing. They don't listen to us all off season saying there are problems on the horizon. There's icebergs out there dead ahead. But the thing is, this Tennessee team can still find ways to win, but they have to win in the margins, if you will. They have to do the little things right, all the little things. They feel like they're grasping at straws. This is a team that can't afford to lose the penalty game, as it did last night, and we'll be talking about today. This is a team that has been doing great in special teams and needed that edge. And last night, special teams, I can think of 4 plays that just went completely the wrong way for you. The margin of error is so small for this team. They have to win all those little edges. They didn't do it last night. That said, I went into halftime thinking they're playing a lot better than I thought. So my question to you guys is that a glass half empty? Glass half full? How do you look at that game last night, Jimmy Himes?
I look at it as half full because clearly Florida's a better team. They're ranked number 11 in the country. You played well. You should have been at least tied for the game at halftime. And you're not going to play. Not everybody you play is as good as Florida. So there'll be some other games along the way that I think you could and should win. You got to clean a lot of things up. But I do think there's this potential for this team to be a lot better than it is. And now, if we're talking about potential in 3 or 4 more weeks, then I'm wrong. You are what you are. But I see this as half full because I think this team can play better than it has, and they were competitive for at least a half.
Bob, half full, half empty?
I'm going to go with half empty, but I'm not talking about the glass. I'm talking about the team. To me, you've got half of the team. You've got, 71 scholarship players?
There's 78.
You've lost 30 guys, and you have no depth. So when you get something like somebody hobbling around out there, maybe you stick with them because you don't have the depth. I looked at this to answer the question as very much half full. I like the way Tennessee come out and attack. I like the way the defense played. I just think you're limited by how many guys you got that can play at that level for an entire 60 minutes.
Josh?
Well, I think glass half full makes sense considering all that you laid out and what Tennessee was facing going in. But the idea of saying glass half full coming out of a 24-point loss to Florida kind of feels glass half empty. The fact that, part of what you feel good about is, well, they didn't blow us out to the second half. At least we weren't getting blown out in the first half. That's not what you're looking for necessarily. And if you take a big picture look at it, at the reasons why, you still have to change those things to get where you want to go. And last night showed there's a long way to go.
Long way to go, but I do believe it is half full just for the simple fact that if you look at this game and you're really looking at and sitting there and going, last year, this Florida team was basically doing a spring game partway through the game, and they were running and working on plays. This game, they took you to the edge. You were challenging them. They weren't taking their first string out, to the very end. And so to me, if I probably had to ask Florida Gators who played against this team, played against them last year, what would they think? I think they would say this is a much better team than the team they played last year. So to me, you've gotten better in some areas, and so I think you're more competitive than you were last year. So I think this is a better look for me that this team has gotten better from last year.
And I saw it last night, and I know people are saying it right now. They're mumbling and angry at their television, and that is, so that's what we are now at Tennessee. We'll take this kind of moral victory. And my answer is, yes, that is exactly what you are now. Yeah. We told you that's what you are. You don't go 3-7 by chance, by accident. Well, it was just a couple of breaks. 3-7 means a whole lot of crap, and that's what you were last year. And Josh Heupel inherited what we told you was the worst situation in Tennessee football history. Nothing I have seen has changed my view of that. So when I look at it and say, well, at least they didn't get smoked in the second half, I saw some things I liked. Yeah, that's taking a so we're happy due to the circumstances.
I even saw some things that I liked in the second half, but they didn't work out for you. You had a drop pass here, you had a penalty there. If those things don't happen, and I'm sorry, it's football. Those things are going to happen. But you've got a team that when they do, I heard everybody on the radio say you got to play a clean game. Do you come away from Florida saying, that Tennessee played a pretty clean game? No, you don't. They left a lot of stuff out there.
Let me show you some numbers here. I think this is kind of interesting. The white numbers are the first half. And total plays and yards, you had more yards. Yards per play in the first half, you had about 9 yards per play. They're at 6. Rush attempts, and yards per attempt, you're both at 5. Great. The only thing where you're not equal, look at that time of possession. And that's because all those yards for Tennessee and all 14 of their points came on 2 plays. You had 122 yards on 2 plays. So while Florida is keeping your defense out there for 20 minutes with drives, you were a big hitter, and you didn't have a lot of long, sustained drives. So their defense, heck, they barely even on the field. They didn't break a sweat. They're out there 10 minutes in the first half. Look what happens in the second half. The average yard per play goes to 9 yards per play for Florida and 4 for you. So it flips. Rushing yards, you're at 3. They get 10 yards a pop. Okay, am I oversimplifying? I got to be quick here, but am I oversimplifying it, or can you look at this and say, no, the whole heck of this was they wore you down because you don't have depth?
Yeah, it is, and it is based on this offense too, right? So I think the keys to the game for me were, you had to be up by enough points in the second half where they couldn't just stay in the run game and keep you in, because your defense is going to be, the way this offense works, is going to be out in the field a long time in the first half. And in the second half, if they're able to just pound the rock, those 4-yard, 5-yard carries go to 6, 7, 8, 9. And so you had to be up to where you had to make them say, we got to pass to catch up to win this game. Otherwise, you're going to be looking at it like this.
And I thought Heupel tried to manage it at times. After that first drive of the first half where they went through you like a hot knife through butter, he came out, it wasn't as fast, and they were also running it. Mm-hmm. I think he was trying to manage it a little better. Am I oversimplifying it just to put it all on? No, I'm not saying put it all on depth, but I'm putting a lot of it on depth. Do you agree with that or disagree with that?
Well, I do, and the key stat that I saw there was a 9.7 yards a carry running the football. That was more than they averaged per play, right?
Right, yeah.
So, yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with that, but I think what happens is when the momentum starts going against you a little bit, which it did, after the drop pass, which I thought was huge, I thought then is when you saw Florida really take over.
Gentlemen? Am I oversimplifying, or do you agree that that's
No, I agree.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I have to imagine mindset changed a little bit at halftime. Dan Mullen's halftime interview was, hey, we need to clean some things up.
Yeah.
We're making mistakes. It was all about us. I'm sure that was the halftime.
They came out more aggressive.
That first drive, yeah.
And you couldn't force them into what it could still be their weakness. I'm not sold on Emory Jones as a passer.
Yeah.
Well, he
And
looked good against
basically-
you.
He looked good yesterday, but you basically took that away from, okay, we can't make them pass because of the way they ran the ball.
Yeah, he wasn't pressure. He wasn't under pressure when he was throwing. In terms, and I don't mean pass rush. I mean, I wonder if he would go back to being the 5 interception guy if that game had been on the line.
Yeah.
Which yesterday
Well, he threw
was.
one up in the first half that possibly
could have
could
been,
have been
yeah.
intercepted.
But the thing for Tennessee is some teams can afford a bunch of penalties and be fine. Alabama right now, they're bottom of the nation. They're about 121, 122. That doesn't really hurt Alabama. Other teams can drop a pass here or there. Tennessee, they're not good enough to do that. So you're having to play perfect.
Miami used to lead the nation in penalties, and they'd still beat the hell out of you.
That's right. That's right. Every year. That's a great point. Great point. And we'll be bringing that up a little later. Some interesting stuff on penalties. When we come back, though, it's our hot read segment, so we're going to talk a little bit about Hendon Hooker. What's the situation with the quarterback play at Tennessee? And then also, what's responsible for Emory Jones suddenly looking like Aaron Rodgers last night? We'll discuss that on the Sports Source next.